In this video, we will learn how to format this simple column chart. The formatting concepts that we will be discussing in this video are universal for all the charts. So even if we have not discussed any chart other than column charts, the charts that we will be learning later on in this course, like pie charts, histograms, etc., you can do this same formatting in all those charts also. As I told you, this chart has several elements such as chart title, horizontal axis, vertical axis, and we can format each individual element. So to format one particular element, we have to select that element. So for example, if I want to format the horizontal axis labels, I can just double click on the horizontal axis labels and these will be selected. If you want to format them, you can right click on it and choose the option of format axis. If you click on this, you can see that we get a separate set of options on the right. In this right window, you can see in this drop down, horizontal category axis is selected because I double clicked on horizontal axis and right clicked on it to open this format option. So by default, this window had this horizontal axis selected. If you want, you can select other chart elements also from this drop down window. So let us select the first option, which is chart area. The next is three set of options. First is fill and line, which is background and border related formatting options. The second is effects. In this you can add three-dimensional effects or shadows and button effects. And the third option is size and properties. You can change the size of this window that we have selected. You can also change the size by dragging these corner points. So you can change the height and width of this chart, or you can change the values here to increase or decrease the height and width of this chart. So this is how you adjust the size of the chart also. Now let's move to the first option, which is fill and line. And here we'll learn how to add border to this chart and how to add a background to this chart. So you can see the first option is fill, which is for the background, and the second option down there is for border. Right now it is automatic for both. First of all, we'll add a solid line border to our chart. When I click this, the first thing I have to select is the color of the solid border that I want. We'll have dark blue. You can change the transparency of the border, width of the border. You can increase the width. I'll increase the width for just so that you can notice it. So you can see we have a border added to our chart. You can also add a background using this fill option. So if you click on solid fill, you can fill a color in it. You can see that whole chart area has a solid fill. If you click on the gradient fill, you can see it has two colors, one on the top which is white and one on the bottom which is blue, and the colors are changing in a gradient manner. The fourth option is of picture or texture. You can select a file from your system, or you can select the pre-saved textures in your Excel software. So when I selected picture texture, it applied a default texture. You can choose other textures from these options. If you want a background photo, you can go and select that file if it is on your system. Second last option is pattern fill. If you select it, you can add pattern background to your chart area. In business setting, most of the times all these fancy options are not used. However, if you are in a creative business and you want to use some of these, you may go ahead and change the background or the border of your chart. Now let us go to the drop down once again. We have covered the chart area. Now let's go to chart title. So again, you can see that we have those three options with us. You can add a background to this particular element. So this small box will get a color. or a background picture. You can add a border to this small element. So if you put a solid line, this sales box will have a solid border. If you want to change the font or the font size of this title, you can select this text and go to the home menu, and within it you can bold it, or you can change the font from Calibri body to some fancy font, or you can increase or decrease the font size. And using this option you can change the font color. Right now it is black, you can change it to blue or some other color, whichever you want. The next option in this drop down is horizontal axis. Again, you can add a background or a border to this using these options. You can change the font size or text color using those home menu options. And you can notice that there is one fourth option here. Just click on it. There are 4 options in this. All these formatting options are particularly for horizontal axis only. So if you want to shift the point where this vertical axis is intersecting with the horizontal axis, you can do it using these options. If you want to change the label distance, you can also do that using these options. But even these options are not really required in most of the business scenarios. This fourth option is of legends. This is the legend box. This will give you the options of adding background and border. These will give you the special effects if you want to add. And this particular one, which is particularly for legend, it is asking you the legend position. So right now bottom is selected. If you want this legend to be on the right of this plot area, you can select right. So this comes on the right of this plot area. If you want it to be on the left, so you can change that, top right, and so on. You can untick this if you want that your legends can overlap with the plot area. Apart from that, just like any other element, you can pick it and drop it. You can drag and drop it to any particular position that you want. The next option is plot area. So you can see that plot area is this small box. You can change the background of this small box if you want, and you can add a separate border to it. The next option is vertical axis. Again, all the other formatting options are similar, just the last one, which is particularly for this vertical axis. In this, one of the most important things that we often use is this bounds option. Here you can see that on the vertical axis it is starting from 0, and the highest value it is showing as 100,000. If you want to change these bounds, that is, you want the minimum value to start from say 30,000 and the maximum value to be 95,000. So you can see that this graph looks a little bit zoomed in because we have removed the bottom 30,000 part of this chart, and only this top part, which is showing the variation, is now zoomed in. Another important thing that we often use is this option of number. Since we have numbers here, we may want to change the way these numbers are displayed. So for example, if I have decimal values, I may want to show some decimal values here. So if I add 2, you can see it has now 2 decimal values. Now this is being shown as numbers. If you want this to be shown as a dollar value or a currency value, you can select accordingly. So for example, if I select accounting, you can see this dollar value is shown here. Since these are sales values, this dollar here makes sense. You can change the symbol which you want, which is being shown here. If you are working in some other currency, you can change that currency and it will show that currency symbol. So the next option here is vertical axis major grid lines. So you can see the vertical axis that we have here is giving us these horizontal grid lines. You can change these grid lines. You can have them as a dashed line. You can change the dash type. Currently it's a continuous line. If you select this dotted line, it will be a dotted line. You can change the width of this line so that it becomes wider. You can change the color of this line to black or to orange, whichever you would like to see. So this is how you can change the dash types. So just in case you want to highlight your grid lines so that it is easier to read the data points, you can change the formatting of grid lines from this option. The next option is series shirts. So this is the blue data series. You can format this data series. You can change the color border of this data series. So right now it is blue. If you want it to be green, you can change the color. So the color formatting is similar to what we have already discussed. We will look at this third option, which is particularly for the series options. It is giving us three things to decide. One is plot series on which axis. I told you that you can have two axes. One is the primary vertical axis and one is the secondary vertical axis. The left side of the graph is usually the primary axis. Since both the data series are using the left side of the graph to show the values, it is primary axis. But if you select the secondary axis for this plot, so you can see that this green bar, this 1st January green bar, the sales value are not to be seen on the left axis, they are to be seen on the right axis. The problem with this is the sales bar of shirts is now overlapping the sales bar of pants. So we will bring them back to the primary axis. The second option is series overlap. Series overlap is basically giving us the distance between these two series. So for example, we have the data point of May. We have sales of shirts and pants in May. If I decrease the series overlap, the distance between these two bars will increase. If I increase it, they will start overlapping each other. So after 0, they will overlap each other. You can see they are overlapping. So series overlap is the distance between the two series. The gap width is the gap between the consecutive values of the same series. So for example, this shirt series, the distance between April value and the May value you can change using the gap width. So if you decrease the gap width, the April and May values of shirt series are coming together since it is getting thicker. And if you increase the gap width, they will shrink down so that the distance between these two values increases. So basically use series overlap to increase the distance between two series data points, different series data points, and use gap width to increase or decrease the distance between consecutive data points of the same series, or in a way change the width of the data series. Lastly, as I told you, you can add or remove elements of the chart by ticking or unticking the options here. Whenever you add another element, so for example, if I add the axis title, you can see that that axis title will come in this options. You can select that and format it. So whichever element you want to have, you add it using this plus icon. Once you have added it, you can format it by selecting it here. These are all the formatting options that we usually use. Practice some of them out on your own and see you in the next lecture.